regrets. Regrets are a funny thing. I guess we all have them, but mine is different. I've had a good life. I have a beautiful wife and successful children, energetic grandkids, and I retired from a good job with a nice pension. This should be my time. So why is it that I feel so alone?
Looks like fun, doesn't it? I used to think so. She still loves it. So here I sit, just waiting, wishing it could be the way it used to be.
I enjoy life. There is so much I want to see and do. Life is full of adventure, like this history tour. The football game is tomorrow, then the theater. Then we leave for our cruise next month. Life is good. So why would I make decisions that could jeopardize all this?
The things I've seen in my career. How often have I heard, if I could only go back and do it again? The thing is, so much of it could have been prevented.
You know what I miss the most? It's the sound of my grandkids playing. It's the sound of laughter and listening to a good story. Look at my family now. They're having a great time, and I have no idea why.
You know what I miss the most? The sound of the big band moving to the rhythm and the sound of a great voice reverberating in my soul. I used to hear a clear, crisp band, but now I hear little more than a muffled vibration.
You know what I enjoy more than anything? It's sitting on the beach, listening to the waves crash as the gulls call out as they pass. It could have been different, you know. All those years in the shop could have taken its toll on me. But I still remember my first day on the job and my grandfather telling me,
Sue, working around all the noise out there without hearing protection cost me. Don't make the same mistake.
it might not have been eloquent, but it always stuck with me.
All those years around all that noise, it never seemed to be that bad at the time. I just never really took time to understand how the ear works and how to really take care of my hearing.
It is important to understand how the ear works. There are three main parts to the human ear. The first part is called the pinna. Its unique shape acts like a funnel to capture sound and direct it into the ear canal. This funneling creates a kind of resonance or energy that goes into the second part, the middle ear, that's made up of the eardrum and three tiny little bones that are sometimes called the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. The eardrum and these tiny bones vibrate, sending a signal into the third part called the inner ear or the cochlea. The cochlea is a tiny fluid-filled chamber with small hairs called stereocilia that turns these vibrations into nerve signals that are then sent to the brain via the auditory nerve and interpreted as sound. The problem is that long-term exposure to excessive noise, or in some cases, short exposures to very loud noises, will permanently damage the hair cells. And since cochlear hair cells cannot grow back, this manifests as a permanent hearing loss. I like to use the analogy of blades of grass. If you walk over the grass once, the grass is temporarily bent down and will recover. If you walk the same path every day, the blades of grass don't get a chance to recover and are killed.
It crept up on me, you know? I can't point to one instance and say, yeah, that's why I can't hear anymore. By the time I realized there was a problem, it was too late.
I know firsthand how hearing loss can affect families. I know firsthand because my grandfather has hearing loss. That advice he gave me my first day stuck with me. It stuck with me because I could see the pain on his face when he had trouble communicating or answering a simple question.
Many people do not realize that hearing loss due to noise usually appears during the first 5 to 10 years of exposure. This means young workers are the ones most at risk of noise-induced hearing loss. That's why a good occupational hearing loss prevention program is so important. But there are many additional benefits as well. For example, it can detect hearing loss that develops from other causes other than workplace noise exposure. Some individuals may suffer hearing loss due to impacted earwax, an ear infection, or possibly a more serious disease. Audiometric tests can help identify these non-noise related problems, and employees can be referred for the necessary medical attention. Therefore, prevention programs promote and contribute to overall hearing health as part of health maintenance programs. There is also evidence that long-term noise exposure may contribute to stress-related disease, especially cardiovascular disease. By reducing noise, the chances of other health impairments are consequently controlled and reduced. Noise reduction and maintenance of hearing sensitivity can benefit safety because employees are better able to communicate and to hear alarms and warnings. Good hearing is also essential for more subtle signals, such as a malfunctioning machine.
My first job was working on a construction crew. I sometimes used a hydraulic jack to break up concrete. Yes, I noticed I had a little trouble hearing after that shift, and the ringing was annoying. But my hearing always seemed to return to normal after a day or so. It's like getting a cut to your skin, right? You get a cut, and hours later you have a scab. Days later the scab falls off, and you have new skin. My hearing was just like that.
Actually, that's incorrect. This condition is called temporary threshold shift. The ringing and the feeling of deafness normally wear off after you have been away from the noise for a short time. However, the longer you are exposed to the noise, the longer it takes for your hearing to return to normal. After leaving work, it may take several hours for a worker's ears to recover. Eventually, after you've been exposed to excessive noise for too long, your hearing does not recover, and the hearing loss becomes permanent.
It wasn't until I'd been at the job at the plant for a while that I could tell something was really wrong. I remember one instance when my boss was trying to ask me about a work order, and I just couldn't understand what he was saying. He started to get really frustrated with me, and I felt really helpless. At home, it wasn't much better. I could be watching TV, and my wife would have to leave the room because it was just too loud.
When I realized there was a problem, I tried not to let anyone know. I'd been around long enough to kind of have an idea of what people were asking me, and I was able to read most people's lips well enough to get by. But I couldn't hide the fact that I had trouble hearing people on the phone. When there was a group or in a meeting setting, I had a difficult time figuring out who was talking and what was being said.
I remember my grandfather no longer being bothered by loud noise. Getting used to loud noise means you are slowly losing your hearing.
Noise-induced hearing loss, or NIHL, is the most common occupational disease in industrial workplaces, accounting for about 1/3 of all work-related diseases, ahead of skin and respiratory problems. NIHL is usually caused by prolonged exposure to loud noise. The first symptom is normally the inability to hear other people speaking. Unless the problem of excessive noise is addressed, a person's hearing will deteriorate further. The damage of noise-induced hearing loss is permanent, and loss can occur without long-term exposures. Brief exposure to high levels of impulsive noises, even a single strong impulse, such as from a gunshot or nail or rivet guns, can have permanent effects, including loss of hearing and continuous tinnitus. However, most often, NIHL develops gradually, so that people may lose a significant amount of hearing before becoming aware of its presence.
I still have a vivid recollection of the moment I knew I couldn't hide it anymore. I was in the plant warehouse taking inventory when all of a sudden John shoved me from the side. As it turns out, a coworker was backing up a forklift after placing a pallet on the rack. He sounded the horn, and I guess I heard it, but it sounded so faint to me that I thought it was distant. The forklift came directly back towards me. Fortunately for me, John was there and noticed that I wasn't reacting and got me out of the way. It was that embarrassing moment that made me realize how much my hearing loss was affecting me at the job.
Seeing my grandfather suffer in life because of his hearing loss really encouraged me to be proactive towards safety and hearing protection advocacy. For example, it's not only wearing the proper hearing protection when you're around noise, it's other things like audiometric testing and engineering controls that can really make a difference as well.
Audiometric testing monitors an employee's hearing over time. Employers must make audiometric testing available at no cost to all employees who are exposed to an action level of 85 decibels or above, measured as an 8-hour time-weighted average, or TWA. The audiometric testing program follow-up should indicate whether the employer's hearing conservation program is preventing hearing loss.
You know, it always gave me peace of mind having my annual audiogram. They took it and compared it to my baseline audiogram to determine if I had any hearing loss issues.
The baseline audiogram is the reference audiogram against which future audiograms are compared, and employers must provide baseline audiograms within 6 months of an employee's first exposure at or above an 8-hour TWA of 85 decibels. Employers then must provide annual audiograms beginning within 1 year of the baseline. It is important to test workers' hearing annually to identify deterioration in their hearing ability as early as possible. This enables employers to initiate protective follow-up measures before hearing loss progresses.
Something that really stuck out about this new job was the fact that they really cared about my safety. They even made a big deal out of engineering controls.
Engineering controls are so important to a good hearing loss prevention program, and every option should be explored to control or eliminate noise hazards. Obviously, the ultimate solution is elimination of the hazard, which means removing the hazard from the workplace. If that can't be done, there are other options such as engineering controls, which include designs or modifications to equipment, ventilation systems, and processes that reduce the source of exposure, such as isolating the noisy equipment so people don't need to work near it or enclosing it with noise-insulating materials. There are also administrative controls that alter the way the work is done, including timing of work, policies and other rules, and work practices such as minimizing the amount of time people need to spend in a noisy area or increasing their distance from the noise source. Then, of course, there is the last line of defense against noise hazards: personal protective equipment, or PPE, which is equipment worn by individuals to reduce exposure to a hazard. In this case, hearing protection to minimize exposure to noise. These methods are also known as the hierarchy of control because they should be considered in this order: 1. Elimination, 2. Engineering controls, 3. Administrative controls, and 4. PPE.
I know one of the noise problems they had at the plant was significant noise radiating from the piping. They realized that the sound could be muffled simply with layers of insulation around the piping. An engineering control this simple greatly reduced the amount of noise in my workplace.
We also used administrative controls to reduce noise, such as securing loose machine parts that rattle. It's amazing how something as simple as regularly checking and securing parts that rattle and performing routine maintenance can decrease the noise in a work environment.
Employees are the focus of the hearing protection program and must make efforts to be fully informed, to obtain help when necessary, and to assume responsibility for wearing their hearing protectors. Employees must consciously develop personal habits and strategies for wearing their hearing protection.
There are 2 main types of hearing protectors: earplugs and earmuffs. The problem is that sometimes earplugs are not used properly. To get the best protection from your soft foam earplugs, remember to roll, pull, and hold when putting them in. After you've cleaned your hands to keep from getting dirt and germs into your ears, the first step is to roll the earplug up into a small, thin snake with your fingers. You can use one or both hands. Then pull the top of your ear up and back with your opposite hand to straighten out your ear canal. The rolled up earplug should slide right in. The final step is to hold the earplug in with your finger. Count to 20 or 30 out loud while waiting for the plug to expand and fill the ear canal. Your voice will sound muffled when the earplug has made a good seal. Make sure you check the fit when you're all done. If you use earmuffs, make sure that nothing interferes with the sealing area around the ear. Temple bars of glasses or long hair can prevent the muff from sealing tightly and provide a pathway for noise to enter into the ear.
I didn't use hearing protectors when I was young, and by the time I started, it was too late. But it is more than just using your hearing protectors. It's also important to properly care for your hearing protectors. For instance, if you use earplugs, you should dispose of single-use earplugs daily, or clean multiple-use earplugs with mild soap and water, making sure to dry them thoroughly. You should also inspect multiple-use earplugs for dirt, cracks, or hardness, and replace them if damaged. If you use earmuffs, you should clean ear cushions and the headband regularly with mild soap and water, and replace the ear cushions and foam inserts every 4 to 6 months with normal wear, and more often with heavy use or extreme conditions.
I can't stress enough the power and importance of a company's hearing loss prevention program. It gives the employee the freedom and the responsibility to provide feedback, communicate problems, and alert management if they notice that equipment sounds different than normal.
I blame many of my hearing problems on the mistakes I made on the job, but there were other areas I neglected as well. Things I could have done at home that probably contributed to my hearing problems today. Things such as turning down the volume on my electronic devices, such as the radio, TV, and even my MP3 player. I also should have worn earplugs or earmuffs when operating loud equipment around the house, such as lawnmowers, power saws, the leaf blower. Things I didn't think about at the time, but now I feel thoughts are all I have.
So here I sit, alone with my thoughts, full of regrets. It's too late for me, but it doesn't have to be for many of you. If you make good choices, you will greatly improve your chances of a high quality of life for many years to come.
I just never thought this is how I would end up. When I was young, I just didn't consider the future consequences of my actions. I felt invincible, and I didn't see how something that didn't seem to be harming me at the time could end up being so costly later in my life.
I enjoy my active lifestyle, and I want to continue to for years to come. My grandfather suffered with his hearing, and seeing how he struggled helped me down the right path. Yes, I know I still have a ways to go, but I know that if I make good decisions now, it will help to ensure my quality of life for years to come.
Some people just accept things the way they are. They don't really take time to think about a better way to do things, but they should. It is critical to be alert to hazardous noise. 1/3 of hearing loss is preventable with proper hearing protection, and that is what is hard for me. Seeing so many people suffer for choices they made that they can't go back and change. There is no pill to bring back your hearing. Protect yourself now to give yourself the best chance to enjoy the sounds you love for many years to come.